Some of you who may be new to TIG welding may wonder what I'm talking about when I say colors versus no colors. What's the difference? I'll explain it like this. Even though colors look really cool on welds, in my opinion at least, it is a form of oxide. There are some situations with very common jobs that will call for welds with zero oxide on them at all. So first off, what causes oxide? Oxide is formed when the surface of our hot weld has a reaction with the elements in the air that we breathe. It's a totally random occurrence as far as the colors that we do get, but the reaction that's formed on the surface is an oxide. Although the oxide can actually turn out to have some stunning colors and can be truly beautiful in some circumstances, like I said, some jobs unfortunately require none at all. So what does it look like with zero oxide on it? Take a look at this one. This is an example of a pass that has been treated with the perfect amount of heat, gas flow, and travel speed. Combined with filler rod, this is what will create the equilibrium to keep a pass cool enough that it does its basic function as a weld, yet will have adequate coverage to prevent any oxide from forming. Here's an outside corner joint. These ones are pretty tricky to keep nice and clean without any oxide forming at all. Because this joint is performed on the edge of two plates, it's pretty thin. As you can imagine, welding on the thin edge of the plate, the material is pretty prone to heat up quickly. So keeping an eye on the amount of filler I use, as well as the speed, it'll be really tricky and important to get this feature on a joint like this. It's tough to list off settings that will work exactly for what I am doing that will apply for everybody watching here, but basically the main thing is this. I will focus on my travel speed more than my settings for amperage that I set on the machine. Hear me out here. I usually set my amperage to be a little bit higher than what I actually probably will require for the weld, because basically the most important thing I focus on is getting a perfect and blended start. I want to add enough filler and hang out in the beginning to let it establish and fully blend in before I get going. What's this called? Anybody know? Fill and chill. And then once I achieve these factors at the beginning, I'm ready to move out at this point. Once I move, it'll basically be a balance between the filler amount as well as speed. I can keep an equal amount of filler, but if I slow down, I overheat. But if I speed up too much, I don't allow for enough penetration in the joint. You can basically imagine how a set amount of amperage is really dependent on my travel speed. We can switch these variables up one for the other and make endless scenarios, but it just goes to show you how important it is to find the balance between these different variables. Heat input, filler amount, and travel speed. If you get all three of those dialed in, gas coverage will have a really easy task of doing its job and giving you proper coverage. So anytime you're having problems with overly oxidized welds, take a look at the heat affected zone. This will be the zone surrounding the weld, and it will be a direct feedback of how you did with your heat input. What you want to see is something like this. See how there is a much smaller heat affected zone here? This shows that our heat input overall was a lot less. I'm sure that my settings may have been pretty dialed in here, but I assure you, most of it was achieved by a quicker travel speed and an adequate amount of filler rod, which, as I said before, allows for a really easy task for the gas coverage to do its job.